Just because spring Auburn football is over doesn't mean that the excitement stops. We've got a brand new commitment to talk about for 2024. Let's talk about who that is and what it means for Auburn football. War Eagle, and welcome back to the channel. My name's Kyle here at E2C Network, where we share the whole Auburn experience. As you're watching or listening today, be sure to drop a comment down below. It will help enter you into our ongoing subscriber giveaway for a signed Auburn football prize package. Details are listed in the description link. And we always want to thank members of our booster club like Devin Wistrom, who help produce videos like this. As of the recording of this video, we are smashed between two big events right now: the end of spring football and, of course, the spring portion of transfer portal opening up. And while those are two big things, we're only focusing right now on high school recruiting and the next commitment for the 2024 class for Hugh Freeze and the Auburn Tigers. A tight end is on the board, Martavious Collins, who has some interesting storylines we're going to talk about because he was a former commit of the Alabama Crimson Tide. We'll talk about that. As we always do, let's talk about the timeline of events that got us to this point for a commitment for the Auburn Tigers. And we'll start off by talking about when Auburn actually offered this commit. Started back on May 6th of 2022, when he was still technically a sophomore, even though that high school year was just about done. He then committed to Alabama. Everybody say boo, hiss right now. On July 20th, that summer, 2022, he's been on several unofficial visits in the fall of 2022, and a lot of those were to Auburn and others, and he even went on a winter visit to Auburn too. He eventually then decommitted on February 6, 2023 from the Alabama Crimson Tide. And he was a big attendee of that big list for Auburn's A-Day, even though it was a bit of a washout in terms of storms and things like that. He did attend, have a great time, and obviously now is committed to the Auburn Tigers. Now let's talk about the prospect. What do you need to know about this guy? Well, he comes from Rome, Georgia, which is north of Atlanta, and plays for Rome High School. He's considered a 3-star by most of the websites tight end, and his measurables are listed around 240, 6'3". Now, what does this mean in terms of what type of tight end he could be? Well, most people, when you hear them talk about him, they'll talk more about the H-back position, which is more blocking and things like that, but still with the ability to go out there and catch. That remains to be seen when he gets on campus, how that'll translate when he gets into a workout program, but obviously a good frame to work within the college system and just see what happens when he gets here. So a few storylines around this commitment, and both of the ones that I want to talk about centralize around the whole Auburn-Alabama dynamic. Now, obviously, you could stretch this out a little bit and call it a flip of sorts, even though it really isn't, because he had already decommitted from Alabama. You're also going to hear Alabama fans start this narrative they always do when they lose somebody. Well, he was falling in the rankings. Well, we didn't want him anyway. I just say ignore all that and let them say and do what they want to do. Just be thankful that this guy saw the light and decided he wanted to come to Auburn. There's also this other element too. There's been some history in high school recruiting in the past between Auburn and Alabama of a guy flipping actual traditional flips from Alabama over to Auburn and then not following through with that commitment or anything like that and going back to the Alabama Crimson Tide. I'm not saying that's going to happen here, but it's just something that pops into my mind from the past. Lastly, I do like to always talk about stats if we have them, and I don't really have a lot of stats for him, especially from the last year, but what I can mention for you to anticipate what you're getting with this guy is his track and field ability, because he does compete in that in high school right now, but not as a runner, as a thrower. He is a shot put guy, a discus guy, which shows you he's already pretty strong and should make you very happy for the type of tight end you're getting. Now that you know a little bit about the player, let's talk about what it means for him and the Auburn Tigers, and we start off by talking about what it means for the 2024 class. This is the 5th overall commit for this class, which also makes it the 3rd on the offensive side of the ball, and of course, the first tight end in this class. Now let's talk about what his future might be in terms of playing time when he arrives at Auburn. And I always stress to plan on these guys redshirting when they first arrive on campus and just be surprised if they get early playing time. But let's focus on who may or may not be here when he arrives on campus. Let's look at the depth chart a little bit. Luke Deal, Tyler Fromm will be gone after this year because I think they've got no more eligibility left. You also might be losing Rivaldo Fairweather and Brandon Frazier, who would be technically seniors with maybe a year, I believe, of eligibility left. So we'll see what happens there. So really, outside of some other players, the main tight end guy at that point is Micah Riley Ducker. So it really looks like there may be some opportunities to play early and often when he arrives on campus. So again, I always stress planned on them to redshirt, but this might be an area where you might see some early playing time. We always like to talk about where these guys are coming from for the makeup of this class, and this is a big one because this is the first from the state of Georgia in this class. We have done a great job cleaning up in the state of Alabama. Now we're moving into our second most important state, the one we basically live in anyway because we're right there at the border, Georgia. And not only that, but you're going up to the Atlanta area and beyond, where we have done really well north of Atlanta, going in and snagging recruits out of that particular area, which is where Rome is located. And finally, what does this commitment mean for the class makeup specifically at the tight end position? Well, it is the first tight end commit, and usually you expect maybe a second one if the need is there. The coaches have already come out and said that they plan to take on 2 commits. And there was also apparently some discussion that the second commit after this one would be a tight end that maybe has a little bit more focus on catching and maybe even slide into a large wide receiver role. That remains to be seen if that'll happen, but it does sound like they're at least wanting to take a second one. So that's my thoughts on your brand new commitment for the 2024 class, Martavious Collins. Would love to know your thoughts down in the comments section below. Be sure to do that, be part of that giveaway, and you need to be subscribed too, because that's part of the process, so do that. Check out the links in the description for ways that you can help support us here at E2C Network, where we share the whole Auburn experience. War Eagle.